The bass thrummed through Valentina's chest like a second heartbeat, each pulse a reminder that she was running out of time. She pressed herself against the marble column near the bar, her fingers trembling as they clutched the stem of a champagne flute she hadn't taken a single sip from. The Crystal Lounge was packed tonight, Manhattan's elite celebrating some tech mogul's 40th birthday, and she'd thought the crowd would be enough to hide her. She'd been wrong. Across the room, through the swaying bodies and flashing lights, she saw him. Marcus, her ex-husband, stood near the entrance with two of his friends, their eyes scanning the crowd with the methodical precision of predators. He wore that charcoal suit she'd always hated, the one that made him look like he owned the world, the one he'd worn to their custody hearing 3 weeks ago, when he'd smiled at the judge and lied through his perfectly white teeth. "Your Honor, Miss Reyes is unstable. She abandoned our daughter for a career. I'm only thinking of Sophia's well-being." If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Valentina's lawyer had promised her the truth would come out, that Marcus's corporate fraud charges would destroy his credibility, that she'd get Sophia back. But that was before Marcus made bail and cornered her with a threat that still echoed in her mind. So Valentina had asked her friend Chen to smuggle her into this party, somewhere public where Marcus wouldn't dare make a scene. But Marcus had found her anyway. Valentina watched him lean down to say something to the taller of his companions, a man with a shaved head and the build of someone who resolved problems with his fists. The man nodded and started moving through the crowd, his eyes methodical, searching. Her heart kicked against her ribs. She had maybe 2 minutes before they spotted her. The back exit was blocked by the catering staff. The main entrance was where Marcus stood guard. The bathrooms were too obvious. She needed a miracle. Or she needed to disappear into the crowd so completely that even Marcus's bloodhounds couldn't find her. Valentina's eyes swept the room desperately, landing on the dance floor where couples moved together in the dim light, bodies pressed close, faces obscured by shadows and movement. If she could just blend in, if she could just... A man stood at the edge of the dance floor, alone. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair touched with silver at the temples. His suit was impeccable, not flashy, but the kind of perfectly tailored elegance that whispered money rather than shouted it. He held a glass of whiskey loosely in one hand, his posture relaxed but somehow alert, like a wolf pretending to rest. He was handsome in a way that would have made Valentina's breath catch under different circumstances. Strong jaw, intelligent dark eyes, the kind of face that suggested he'd seen too much of the world and remembered all of it. But what mattered most was that he was alone, that he was close, and that he looked like the kind of man Marcus might actually hesitate to confront. Valentina didn't let herself think. Thinking meant freezing. Freezing meant getting caught. She abandoned her champagne on a passing tray and crossed the distance between them in 10 rapid steps, her heels clicking against the polished floor. The man looked up as she approached, his expression shifting from detached observation to mild curiosity. Valentina didn't give him time to speak. "Dance with me," she said, her voice coming out more breathless than she'd intended. "Please. My ex is here, and he's..." She glanced over her shoulder. Marcus's friend was 20 feet away now, his eyes sweeping past her, not quite seeing her yet. "Please. Just one dance. He's watching." The man's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his dark eyes. Assessment, maybe. Calculation. "Your ex," he said, his voice smooth and deep, with just a hint of an accent she couldn't quite place. Italian, maybe. Or Spanish. "He's the problem?" "Yes." Valentina's fingers reached out almost involuntarily, touching his arm. The fabric of his jacket was expensive, silk blend, warm from his body heat. "Please." For a long moment the man simply looked at her. His gaze was intense, unflinching, the kind of look that saw through makeup and borrowed dresses straight to the fear underneath. Valentina felt stripped bare under that gaze, exposed in a way that should have frightened her but somehow didn't. Then he set down his whiskey glass. "One condition," he said quietly. "Anything." His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You follow my lead." Before Valentina could respond, his hand was on her waist, warm and firm and possessive. He guided her onto the dance floor with a confidence that suggested he did this often, pulled her close enough that her chest brushed against his, and began to move. The song was slow, sultry, something with a Latin beat that thrummed through the floorboards. Valentina had taken dance lessons years ago for her wedding, but she'd been clumsy then, self-conscious. Now, with this stranger's hand on her waist and his other hand clasping hers, she found herself following instinctively. He led with absolute certainty, each movement precise but fluid, guiding her through turns she didn't know she could make. His body was solid against hers, radiating heat and something else. Control, maybe, or power barely restrained. "Your ex," he murmured, his breath warm against her ear. "Describe him." Valentina's pulse skipped. Charcoal suit, brown hair, styled with too much product. 6 feet tall. He's near the entrance with 2 other men. "I see him." The stranger's hand tightened fractionally on her waist. "He's looking this way." Valentina stiffened, but the man pulled her closer, eliminating the space between them. His chin brushed her temple, and to anyone watching, they would look like lovers, lost in the music and each other. "Relax," he said softly. "You're supposed to be enjoying this." "He's dangerous," Valentina whispered. "If he sees me." "He does see you." The stranger's voice was calm, almost amused. "But right now, you're with me, and that changes things." Valentina tilted her head back to look at him, confusion cutting through her fear. "What do you mean?" His dark eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw something underneath the polished exterior. Something cold and sharp and utterly certain. "I mean," he said quietly, "that your ex is currently deciding whether approaching you is worth the risk. Men like him understand power dynamics. And right now, you're under my protection." The song shifted, the tempo slowing. The stranger spun her out, then pulled her back in, her back pressing against his chest. His arm wrapped around her waist from behind, holding her secure. From across the room, it would look intimate, possessive, like they'd done this 1,000 times before. Valentina could feel his heartbeat against her spine, steady, unhurried, completely calm. "Who are you?" she breathed. "Right now?" His lips were close to her ear, his voice a low rumble that sent shivers down her spine. "I'm the man keeping you safe. That's all you need to know." The song ended. The stranger held her for one more beat, then released her slowly, his hands trailing away from her body with deliberate care. When Valentina turned to face him, he was already reaching into his jacket. He pulled out a business card, cream-colored, expensive stock, with nothing but a phone number embossed in gold. "If your ex continues to be a problem," he said, pressing the card into her palm, "call this number. Someone will help you." Valentina stared at the card, then back at him. "I don't understand." "Why would you—" "Because women shouldn't have to beg strangers for protection." His expression softened fractionally. "And because I know what it looks like when someone is genuinely afraid." Before Valentina could respond, someone called out across the dance floor, a name she didn't recognize. The stranger's attention shifted, his posture changing subtly. He gave Valentina one last look, something unreadable passing across his face. "Be safe, Miss Reyes," he said quietly. Then he was gone, disappearing into the crowd with the same fluid grace he'd used on the dance floor. Valentina stood frozen, the business card clutched in her hand, her heart hammering for entirely new reasons. He'd known her name without her telling him. Either he'd been watching her before tonight, or he had the kind of connections that could identify anyone in seconds. Both possibilities should have terrified her. Strangely, they didn't. Val. The voice behind her was cold, controlled, familiar in the worst way. Valentina turned slowly. Marcus stood 3 feet away, his expression pleasant but his eyes furious. The two men who'd been with him flanked him now, creating a wall between her and the rest of the party. "I've been looking for you," Marcus said, his smile not reaching his eyes. "We need to talk. About Sophia." Valentina's fingers tightened around the business card, the edges cutting into her palm. "I have nothing to say to you. My lawyer will handle everything." "Your lawyer can't help you, Val." Marcus took a step closer, his voice dropping to a whisper only she could hear. "I've already filed new motions. Character witnesses who'll testify you're unfit. By the time we're done, you'll be lucky to get supervised visits." "You're lying." "Am I?" Marcus's smile widened. "Try me. Or you could be smart. Drop the custody case. Let me have full custody, and I'll be generous with visitation. Fight me, and I'll destroy you." Valentina wanted to scream, to shove him, to run. But they were surrounded by Manhattan's elite, and Marcus was very good at playing the concerned ex-husband. Any scene she made would only prove his point about her instability. "Think about it," Marcus said, straightening his jacket. "You have until Monday. After that, things get uglier." He turned and walked away, his companions following. They disappeared into the crowd, leaving Valentina standing alone on the dance floor, trembling with rage and fear and helplessness. She looked down at the business card in her hand. No name, just a number. The stranger's words echoed in her mind. "If your ex continues to be a problem, call this number." Valentina didn't believe in fairy tales. She didn't believe in knights in shining armor or mysterious strangers who solved your problems. She'd learned the hard way that the only person she could depend on was herself. But as she stood there, surrounded by music and laughter and the lives of people who'd never known real fear, Valentina made a decision. She pulled out her phone and saved the number. Not because she'd call it, but because sometimes even the illusion of a lifeline was better than drowning alone. The black SUV sat parked across the street from Valentina's apartment building, engine idling, windows tinted so dark they looked like holes in reality. Inside, Dante Caruso watched the third-floor window where a light had just flickered on. "Boss," Marcus, his Marcus, not the woman's ex, spoke from the driver's seat. "You sure about this?" Dante didn't answer immediately. He was still thinking about the woman from the club, Valentina Reyes, single mother, art teacher at PS 114 in Brooklyn, divorced from Marcus Harrington, a hedge fund manager currently under investigation for securities fraud, currently fighting for custody of their 7-year-old daughter. Dante had made 3 phone calls after leaving the Crystal Lounge, the first to his information broker, the second to his lawyer, the third to a judge who owed him a considerable favor. By the time his car had pulled up outside Valentina's building, Dante knew everything about her life. Her teaching salary that barely covered rent in a safe neighborhood, her daughter's elementary school records, her ex-husband's mounting legal problems, and his desperate need for custody to appear stable before his trial. The restraining order Valentina had filed and that had been denied for insufficient evidence. He knew she was drowning, and he knew exactly who was holding her head underwater. "Boss," Marcus prompted again. "I'm sure," Dante said quietly. "She's not connected. Not family, not business, just some random woman who asked you to dance." "She asked for help." "Lots of people ask for help. You don't usually adopt them as personal projects." Dante finally looked at his second-in-command. Marcus had been with him for 12 years, ever since Dante had taken over the family business from his father. Marcus was loyal, Smart and practical. He was also right. Dante didn't do this, didn't get involved in civilian problems, didn't use his resources, his power, his connections, his particular skill set, for anything beyond family business and territorial disputes. But something about Valentina Reyes had gotten under his skin. Maybe it was the way she'd looked at him when she'd asked for help. Desperate, but not defeated. Afraid, but not broken. Maybe it was the ex-husband's face when he'd spotted her on the dance floor, that flash of possessive fury that Dante recognized, the look of a man who viewed a woman as property to be controlled. Or maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe Dante was just tired of being surrounded by fear and violence, and choosing to do nothing when he had the power to change things. Monday morning, Dante said, I want a complete file on Marcus Harrington, his financials, his associates, his legal team, everything. And I want our lawyer to reach out to Miss Reyes's attorney, offer assistance, pro bono. Boss, that's going to raise questions. People will wonder why you're involving yourself. Let them wonder. And if Harrington retaliates? Goes after her harder because she suddenly has powerful backing? Dante's jaw tightened. Then Harrington learns why it's a mistake to threaten someone under my protection. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then carefully, she doesn't know what you are, what you do. When she finds out. She won't. Dante's voice was firm. This stays quiet. Anonymous support through legal channels. She never needs to know I'm involved. You're doing all this for a woman you danced with once? Dante looked back at the window where Valentina's silhouette moved behind curtains. He thought about her trembling hands, her desperate courage, the way she'd asked a stranger for help because she had nowhere else to turn. I'm doing this, Dante said quietly, because I can. Because I have the power to help, and she has no one else. That's reason enough. Marcus sighed but didn't argue further. He knew better. When Dante made a decision, it was final. As they pulled away from the curb, Dante took one last look at the window. The light was still on. He wondered if Valentina was looking at his business card right now, wondering who he was, wondering if she should call. She wouldn't. Not yet. Women like Valentina didn't trust easily, especially not after being betrayed by someone they'd loved, but she would call eventually. When things got worse, and they would get worse before they got better, she'd remember the stranger who'd danced with her, who'd kept her safe for 3 minutes and 40 seconds, who'd given her a lifeline without asking for anything in return. And when she called, Dante would be ready. Because he'd made her a promise on that dance floor, even if she didn't realize it. He'd wrapped his arm around her waist and pulled her close and made her safe, even if just for one song. And Dante Caruso didn't break his promises. Not ever. Valentina hadn't slept. She'd tried. Climbed into bed at midnight, stared at the ceiling until 2, given up at 3 and made coffee she didn't drink. Now, at 6:30 on a Saturday morning, she sat at her kitchen table with Marcus's custody documents spread in front of her like evidence at a crime scene. Every accusation was Marcus's projection of his own failures twisted to make her look unfit. Valentina's phone buzzed, a text from her mother. Mia, Sophia wants to know if you're coming to her soccer game today. 2 p.m. at Riverside Park. Valentina's chest tightened. According to the temporary custody arrangement, she got Sophia every other weekend. This wasn't her weekend. But Marcus had agreed, in writing, through lawyers, that Valentina could attend Sophia's activities. It was one of the few concessions he'd made, probably because it made him look reasonable to the judge. She typed back, I'll be there. Tell her I love her. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then, be careful, Val. Marcus called yesterday asking questions about you, about your mental state. I didn't like his tone. Valentina closed her eyes. Marcus was building his case, brick by poisonous brick, talking to her family, her friends, Sophia's teachers, planting seeds of doubt everywhere he could. And Valentina had nothing to fight back with except the truth, which suddenly felt like the weakest weapon in the world. Her eyes drifted to the business card sitting on the table. Cream-colored, expensive, just a phone number embossed in gold. If your ex continues to be a problem, call this number. The stranger's voice echoed in her memory, calm, confident, absolutely certain. The way he'd held her on that dance floor, like she was something precious that needed protecting. The way he'd known her name without her telling him. Who was he? Someone powerful, clearly. Someone with resources and connections. Someone dangerous, probably, because men like that always were. But is it dangerous to her? Or dangerous to people who threatened her? Valentina picked up the card, turning it over in her fingers. No name, no company, just a number. It should have felt ominous, but instead it felt like a possibility. If this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, smash that subscribe button. It only takes a second and it helps me create more content like this. What would you do in Valentina's situation? Let me know in the comments. She set it down and went to take a shower. She didn't call. Not yet. Riverside Park was chaotic at 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. Kids in mismatched uniforms chased soccer balls across patchy grass. Parents clustered on the sidelines with folding chairs and coffee thermoses, shouting encouragement that ranged from supportive to borderline aggressive. Valentina spotted Sophia immediately, her daughter's dark braids flying as she ran down the field, her face scrunched in concentration. 7 years old and already so fierce, so determined, so heartbreakingly like her father in all the ways Valentina wished she wasn't. Val? Valentina turned. Her mother, Rosa, stood beside her with a tired smile and a thermos she immediately pressed into Valentina's hands. You look terrible, mija. Thanks, Mom. You always know what to say. I mean, you look like you haven't slept. Rosa's voice softened. Talk to me. What's happening with the case? Valentina took a sip of coffee, too sweet, the way her mother always made it, and watched Sophia score a goal. The other parents cheered. Sophia's coach gave her a high five. For just a moment, everything felt normal. Marcus filed new motions, Valentina said quietly. His lawyer is bringing character witnesses, people who'll say I'm unstable. That's insane. You're the most stable person I know. Doesn't matter. Marcus has money for better lawyers. And he's got friends, people who'll say whatever he wants them to say. Valentina's hands tightened around the thermos. I'm going to lose her, Mom. I can feel it. No. Rosa grabbed her daughter's arm fierce. You're not going to lose her. We'll fight. We'll get you a better lawyer. Take out loans if we have to. You don't have money for that. I don't have money for that. Valentina blinked back tears. And Marcus knows it. That's why he's doing this now, while he still can, before his fraud charges catch up with him. They stood in silence for a moment, watching Sophia play. Then Rosa said quietly, What about her father's family? Your ex's parents? They believe everything Marcus tells them. They think I'm the problem. Then what about that man from last night? The one Chen mentioned? Valentina's head snapped toward her mother. What? Chen called me this morning, said you met someone at the party. Someone who seemed very interested in making sure you were safe. Rosa's eyes were knowing. She said he looked important. It was nothing. I asked a stranger to dance so Marcus wouldn't corner me, that's all. Is it? Rosa pulled something from her purse, a printed screenshot from a society blog. The image was blurry but unmistakable. Valentina on the dance floor, wrapped in a man's arms, her face tilted up toward his. The caption read, Mystery couple steals the show at Cameron's birthday bash. Does anyone know who they are? Valentina stared at the photo. She barely recognized herself. The way she was looking at him, the way he was holding her. They looked like lovers. They looked like they belonged together. Chen did some digging after she saw this. Rosa continued. Asked around. Nobody knew who he was, but several people recognized him. Said he's someone you don't approach without an invitation. Someone powerful. Someone connected. Connected. Valentina's stomach turned cold. You mean, I don't know what I mean. But Chen said if he took an interest in you, it's not something small. Men like that don't dance with random women unless there's a reason. Valentina thought about the business card sitting on her kitchen table, about the way the stranger had said, "Your ex is currently deciding whether approaching you is worth the risk." Like he understood power dynamics intimately, like he operated in a world where protection and threats were currencies. Mom, I have to go. What? The game's not over. But Valentina was already moving, pulling out her phone, her heart hammering. She needed to know. Needed to understand what she'd stumbled into last night. Needed to know if the lifeline she'd been offered was real or if she'd just made everything infinitely worse. She found a quiet spot near the parking lot and pulled up Chen's number. Val? What's wrong? The man from last night. The one I danced with. Who is he? Chen was quiet for a long moment. Why are you asking? Because he gave me his number. Because he said to call if Marcus was a problem. Because you're acting like I accidentally made contact with someone dangerous, and I need to know what I'm dealing with. Another pause. Then carefully. I don't know his name. Nobody I asked would say it directly. But Val, the people who recognized him, they were scared. Like, genuinely scared. The kind of scared that comes from knowing exactly what someone is capable of. Valentina's hand tightened on her phone. What are you saying? I'm saying that, whoever he is, he's not just rich or well-connected. He's powerful in a way that makes other powerful people nervous. And if he's offering you help, Chen's voice dropped. Maybe you should take it. But maybe you should also be very, very careful about what that help might cost. Valentina ended the call and stood in the parking lot, her mind racing. The smart thing would be to throw away the card, to find another way, to handle this herself like she'd been handling everything for the past year. But the smart thing wasn't working. The smart thing was letting Marcus win. Valentina pulled out her wallet and extracted the business card. Her hands were shaking as she dialed the number. It rang once, twice. Then a smooth, professional voice answered, "Yes?" Not the stranger. Someone else. Someone who sounded like they answered phones for dangerous men on a regular basis. Valentina's voice cracked. She cleared her throat. Someone gave me this number. At the Crystal Lounge last night. He said to call if I needed help. Your name? Valentina Reyes. A pause. Then, hold please, Miss Reyes. Soft music played. Valentina counted her heartbeats. 23, 24, 25, before a different voice came on the line. His voice, the stranger's. Miss Reyes. He sounded unsurprised, like he'd been expecting her call. Has something happened? I don't know who you are, Valentina said, the words tumbling out. I don't know what you do or why you helped me last night or what you want from me, but I need to know if your offer was real, if you can actually help, or if this is just... It's real. His voice was calm, certain. Tell me what you need. My ex-husband is trying to take my daughter from me. He's lying to the court, bringing false witnesses, using his money and connections to destroy my credibility. I have a good lawyer, but not good enough. Not against what he can afford. And her voice broke. I can't lose my daughter. She's everything. I'll do anything. Silence on the other end. Then quietly. Where are you right now? Riverside Park. My daughter's soccer game. Is your ex there? Not yet. But he will be. He always shows up at the end to look like the devoted father. Stay where you are. I'm sending someone to you. His name is Marco. He'll be driving a silver Mercedes. He's going to take you somewhere we can talk privately. Bring your daughter if you want. Or leave her with your mother. Your choice. Wait. How do you know my mother is Miss Reyes? His voice gentled slightly. I make it my business to know things. It's how I help people effectively. Trust that everything I know about you stays confidential. Trust that I'm not your enemy. Then who are you? A pause. Then, someone who keeps his promises. I told you I'd help if you needed it. I meant it. Marco will be there in 20 minutes. The line went dead. Valentina stood frozen, the phone pressed to her ear, her mind reeling. She'd just accepted help from a man whose name she didn't even know. A man who knew where she was without being told. A man who scared other powerful people. She should run. Should grab Sophia and her mother and disappear. But disappearing wouldn't stop Marcus. Wouldn't save her custody case. Wouldn't protect her daughter. And the stranger, whoever he was, had kept her safe on that dance floor. Had looked at her with eyes that saw her fear and hadn't flinched from it. Someone who keeps his promises. Valentina walked back to the soccer field. The game was ending. Sophia was laughing with her teammates, her face flushed with victory. Rosa stood on the sidelines, chatting with another mother. Everything looked so normal, so safe. But Valentina knew better. Safety was an illusion. Security was something you fought for, not something given freely. And right now, a stranger with a calm voice and dangerous connections was offering her a weapon she desperately needed. She just had to decide if she was brave enough, or desperate enough, to use it. The silver Mercedes pulled up exactly 20 minutes later. The man who emerged was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of alert posture that suggested military training. He wore a simple black suit and moved with efficient grace as he approached Valentina. Miss Reyes. His voice was professional, neutral. I'm Marco. Mr. Caruso sent me. Caruso. Finally, a name. I need to get my daughter settled first, Valentina said, glancing back at where Sophia was gathering her soccer equipment. Of course, take your time. Valentina walked back to her mother and daughter, her heart hammering. Sophia looked up with a gap-toothed grin. Mom, did you see? I scored 2 goals. I saw, baby. You were amazing. Valentina crouched down, brushing grass from Sophia's shin guards. Listen, I need to go handle some grown-up stuff. Can you stay with Abuela for a bit? Sophia's smile faltered. Is it about Dad? The question hit Valentina like a fist. Her 7-year-old shouldn't have to ask that. Shouldn't have to understand that grown-up stuff meant lawyers and custody battles, and a father who used love as a weapon. Just boring paperwork, Valentina lied, smoothing Sophia's braids. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? We'll get ice cream. You always say that when something's wrong. Valentina's throat tightened. I love you so much, Michielo. Everything I do is to keep you safe. You know that, right? Sophia nodded solemnly, too wise for her age. Then she threw her arms around Valentina's neck and whispered, I love you too, Mama. Don't let Dad win. Valentina held her daughter close, breathing in the smell of grass and sweat and children's shampoo. Then she stood, kissed her mother's cheek, and walked back to where Marco waited beside the Mercedes. Ready, Miss Reyes? No, absolutely not. This was insane. Yes, Valentina said, and climbed into the car. They drove for 30 minutes, heading north out of the city. Valentina watched the neighborhoods change through tinted windows, from Brooklyn's residential blocks to industrial areas to suburbs with gated estates hidden behind stone walls and ancient trees. Marco didn't speak except to occasionally murmur into an earpiece. Valentina didn't ask questions. She was too busy trying to control her breathing, trying to convince herself she hadn't just made a catastrophic mistake. Finally, they turned through iron gates that opened automatically. A long driveway wound through manicured grounds, past fountains and sculptures and gardens that belonged in European estates, not 40 minutes from Manhattan. The house, if you could call it a house, was a modern masterpiece of glass and stone, all clean lines and expensive taste. Not ostentatious, but impossibly elegant. The kind of place that whispered power rather than shouted it. Marco parked near the entrance. Mr. Caruso is waiting in his study. Second floor, third door on the right. I'll be here if you need anything. Valentina climbed out on shaking legs. The entrance hall was stunning. Marble floors, modern art, a floating staircase that looked like it defied physics. Everything was pristine, carefully curated, perfect. She found the study exactly where Marco said it would be. The door was open. The stranger, Caruso, stood at the window with his back to her, holding a glass of whiskey, staring out at the grounds. He'd changed from last night's suit into dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms that suggested he was no stranger to physical work, despite his obvious wealth. "Come in, Miss Reyes," he said without turning around, and closed the door. Valentina stepped inside. The study was lined with bookshelves, dominated by a massive desk that looked antique and expensive. Everything about the room screamed taste and money and power. Caruso turned finally, and Valentina's breath caught. In the daylight, without the dim lighting of the club, he was even more striking. Sharp features, intelligent dark eyes, the kind of presence that dominated a room without effort. He looked at her the same way he had last night, like he saw everything, understood everything, and had already decided exactly how this conversation would go. "Thank you for coming," he said, gesturing to a leather chair. "Please, sit." Valentina remained standing. "Who are you?" "Really?" "My name is Dante Caruso. I run several businesses in the city: real estate, construction, import-export. Some of my ventures are completely legitimate. Others—" He paused, his expression unreadable. "Others operate in gray areas." "Gray areas." Valentina's voice came out sharper than intended. "That's a nice way of saying you're a criminal." "That depends on your definition of criminal." Dante took a sip of his whiskey. "I don't hurt innocent people. I don't deal in drugs or human trafficking. I don't prey on the weak. But yes, Miss Reyes, I operate outside the law when the law fails to serve justice." If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. And what does any of that have to do with me? Last night, you asked me for help. Today, you called because your ex-husband is using his resources to destroy you. I'm offering you access to my resources instead, to level the playing field. Valentina's hands clenched at her sides. "Why? What do you want from me?" "Nothing. Nobody does something for nothing. Especially not men like you. Men like me." Dante set down his glass and walked closer, stopping a few feet away. Close enough that Valentina could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, the small scar above his left eyebrow. "What do you think men like me want, Miss Reyes?" "Control, power, leverage." Valentina forced herself not to step back. "You help me, I owe you. That's how this works, right? That's how men like you operate." "Sometimes." Dante's expression didn't change, but not this time. "Then why?" He was quiet for a long moment, studying her with that unnerving intensity. Then quietly, "Because I watched you on that dance floor last night, terrified and desperate and asking a stranger for help. And I saw someone trying very hard not to break. Someone fighting to protect what matters most with no weapons except courage." He paused, and something shifted in his expression. something raw and honest that made Valentina's breath catch. I know what it's like to be powerless, Dante continued, to watch people you love suffer because you don't have the resources to protect them. I built everything I have so I'd never feel that way again. So when I see someone else in that position, someone who deserves better than what life's giving them, I remember. And I help. If they'll let me. Valentina stared at him, her mind racing. She'd expected threats, expected demands, expected a transaction where she was the commodity. Instead, he was offering help without asking for anything in return. And either he was a liar who'd reveal his true intentions later, or he was something far more dangerous, a man who actually meant what he said. What exactly are you offering? Valentina asked carefully. Legal support first. The best custody lawyer in New York. Someone who's never lost a case. He'll take yours pro bono, courtesy of an anonymous benefactor. Your ex's character witnesses? We'll find the skeletons in their closets. His financial crimes? We'll make sure the prosecutors have everything they need. By the time we're done, Marcus Harrington won't have the credibility to win a parking dispute, much less a custody case. That's everything I need. Valentina's voice shook. But what happens when Marcus figures out I suddenly have powerful backing? What happens when he retaliates? Dante's expression hardened. Then he learns why that was a mistake. Miss Reyes, if you accept my help, you accept my protection. That means Marcus can't touch you, can't threaten you, can't use his money or connections against you without consequences. What kind of consequences? The kind that makes men like him reconsider their choices. Dante's voice was calm, but underneath it was something cold and absolute. I won't hurt him, won't touch him, but I will destroy every avenue he uses to threaten you. His lawyers will drop him, his witnesses will recant, his business partners will distance themselves. By the time I'm finished, he'll be radioactive. Valentina should have been horrified, should have recognized the danger in accepting help from a man who could casually describe destroying someone's life. But all she could think about was Sophia's gap-toothed smile, her daughter's whispered plea, "Don't let Dad win." "Okay," Valentina whispered. "I accept." "Are you sure? Because once we start this, there's no going back. Your ex will know someone powerful is protecting you, and that knowledge itself might escalate things before they get better." "I'm sure." Dante studied her for another moment, then nodded. "I'll have my lawyer contact you Monday morning. His name is Richard Chen." "Chen? Like my friend Chen who works security?" A faint smile touched Dante's lips. "His sister. Small world. She speaks very highly of you, which is part of why I did the initial research. Wanted to make sure you were who you seem to be." "And who did I seem to be?" "Someone worth helping." Dante walked back to his desk and pulled out a folder. "This is everything we've gathered on your ex-husband so far. Financial irregularities, witness statements from his office, testimony from his former assistant about a hostile work environment. It's a start." Valentina took the folder with trembling hands. "How did you get all this in less than 12 hours? I have good people. This is..." She flipped through the pages, her heart pounding. "This is enough to destroy his fraud defense, maybe even his custody case. That's the idea." Valentina looked up at him, this stranger who was offering her salvation without asking for her soul. "I don't understand you. Why do you care? Really?" Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked to the window again, his back to her. When he spoke, his voice was distant, like he was remembering something painful. "My sister had a daughter. Beautiful little girl, 6 years old. My sister's husband was a violent man, charming in public, a monster at home. She tried to leave him, tried to get custody, but he had money, connections, lawyers who made her look unstable. The court gave him custody anyway." Dante's hands clenched at his sides. 3 months later, he killed them both. Murder-suicide. Made it look like my sister was unstable, like she'd hurt her daughter and then herself. The investigation believed his story because he'd built the narrative so carefully. Valentina's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. I was younger then. Didn't have the resources I have now. Couldn't help her when she needed it most. Dante turned to face her, his expression carved from stone. So now, when I see women trapped in situations like yours, I help. Because maybe I can't save my sister, but I can save someone else's daughter from growing up without her mother. Tears burned Valentina's eyes. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Just promise me something. What? Promise me you'll fight, that you won't give up even when it gets hard, that you'll do whatever it takes to protect your daughter. I promise, Valentina whispered. I swear. Dante nodded, satisfied. Then we start Monday. Richard will call you at 9 a.m. In the meantime, if your ex contacts you, don't engage. Document everything, but don't respond. Let him think he's winning. It'll make him careless. Valentina clutched the folder to her chest. What if this doesn't work? What if Marcus still wins? He won't. Dante's voice was absolute, carrying the weight of a vow. Marco drove Valentina home as the sun was setting. She sat in the back seat, the folder balanced on her lap, her mind churning with everything that had just happened. She'd made a deal with a dangerous man, a man who operated in gray areas and had the power to destroy people, a man who'd admitted to breaking the law when the law failed him. But he'd also saved his sister's killer from justice, had looked at Valentina with genuine compassion, had offered help without demanding payment. And right now, with Marcus tightening the noose around her custody case, Dante Caruso felt less like a threat and more like her only hope. Valentina looked down at the folder. Inside was enough evidence to ruin Marcus, enough truth to set her free. She thought about Sophia's face, about the way her daughter had whispered, "Don't let Dad win." And she thought about Dante's promise, "I don't lose." For the first time in a year, Valentina felt something she'd almost forgotten the feeling of: hope. And maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something that looked like salvation. Monday morning arrived with rain hammering against Valentina's apartment windows. She'd barely slept again, spent the weekend reading and rereading the folder Dante had given her, memorizing every detail of Marcus's financial crimes, every inconsistency in his statements, every piece of evidence that could save her. At exactly 9 a.m., her phone rang. "Miss Reyes? This is Richard Chen. I believe you're expecting my call?" The lawyer's voice was crisp, professional, and confident. They spent an hour on the phone while Valentina detailed everything: the custody battle, Marcus's threats, the restraining order that had been denied, the character witnesses he was bringing. Richard listened without interrupting, occasionally asking pointed questions that showed he was already 3 steps ahead. "I'll file emergency motions this afternoon," he said when she finished. "We'll request an immediate hearing based on new evidence of your ex-husband's fraudulent activities and witness intimidation. I'll also petition for supervised visitation until the custody matter is resolved, which means Sophia stays with you until the court decides otherwise." "Can you really do that?" Valentina's voice shook. "Just like that?" "Miss Reyes, I've been practicing family law for 20 years. I know every judge in this district, every clerk, every procedural shortcut. More importantly, I know how to present evidence in a way that makes it impossible to ignore." He paused. "You have a guardian angel, whether you realize it or not. Someone very powerful wants you to win, so you're going to win." After the call ended, Valentina sat at her kitchen table in stunned silence. It was happening, really happening. After a year of drowning, someone had thrown her a rope made of steel cables and legal expertise. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Richard will handle everything, trust him, and stay away from your ex until the hearing. DC. Dante. Checking in, making sure she understood the plan. Valentina typed back, "Thank you. For everything." The response came immediately. "You're welcome, be safe." Two words that somehow felt like a promise wrapped in concern. The explosion came on Tuesday afternoon. Valentina was at PS 114, setting up her art classroom for the next day's lesson, when her phone started ringing. First her mother, then her friend Chen, then a number she didn't recognize. She answered the unknown number. "Hello? Is this Valentina Reyes?" A woman's voice, professional but urgent. "Yes?" "This is Detective Sarah Martinez with the NYPD's Financial Crimes Division. We need you to come down to the precinct. Your ex-husband Marcus Harrington has been arrested, and we need your statement regarding certain threats he made against you." Valentina's legs went weak. She sank into one of the student chairs. Arrested? For what? Securities fraud, witness tampering, and attempted intimidation of a witness? That would be you. The DA's office received an extensive file this morning with evidence compiled by, well, multiple sources. It was enough to get warrants. We executed them at his office 2 hours ago. Valentina's mind reeled. What does this mean for my custody case? That's for family court to decide, ma'am. But between you and me, men facing federal fraud charges don't usually win custody battles, especially when there's evidence they've been threatening their ex-wives. After Valentina hung up, she immediately called Richard. "I heard," the lawyer said before she could speak. "I'm already drafting amended motions. This changes everything, Miss Reyes. Marcus's credibility is destroyed. His character witnesses are distancing themselves as we speak. The judge will almost certainly grant you primary custody at the hearing." "When is the hearing?" "Friday morning, 10 a.m. Be there, be calm, and let me handle everything else." Valentina ended the call and immediately dialed the number on the cream-colored business card. Dante answered on the first ring. "Miss Reyes, you did this. It wasn't a question. You got him arrested. I provided evidence to the appropriate authorities. What they did with it was their choice." "Dante?" She stopped, realizing she'd used his first name. Something shifted in the silence on the other end. "Did you have him arrested to help me? Or would this have happened anyway? Marcus Harrington is a criminal who's been defrauding investors for years. He deserved to face consequences for that, regardless of his custody battle with you." Dante's voice was measured. "That said, the timing was strategic. I won't lie to you about that. He's going to retaliate. When he makes bail, he's going to come after me. He's not making bail. His assets are frozen pending the fraud investigation. And even if he did, Miss Reyes, I told you, you're under my protection now. That means something." The certainty in his voice sent shivers down Valentina's spine. "What happens now?" "Now you go to court Friday morning. You listen to Richard, you stay calm, and you get your daughter back." A pause. "And after that, if you want to never hear from me again, that's your choice. The debt is paid. You owe me nothing." "Paid?" Valentina frowned. "What debt?" Dante was quiet for a moment. "You asked a stranger for help when you had every reason to believe no one would. You trusted me when trust cost you everything. That kind of courage deserves to be rewarded, not exploited." Before Valentina could respond, he continued. "Marco will be watching your apartment tonight and tomorrow, just as a precaution. You won't see him, but he'll be there. After the hearing, you can decide if you want that to continue or not." "Dante, I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me. Just be a good mother to your daughter. That's enough." The line went dead. Valentina sat in her empty classroom, surrounded by children's artwork and the smell of paint and possibility, and felt something warm unfold in her chest. Not just relief. Not just hope. gratitude for a stranger who'd kept his promise, who'd given her back her life without asking for anything in return, who'd looked at her fear and responded with protection instead of predation. She didn't know what Dante Caruso was. Criminal, vigilante, guardian angel wrapped in expensive suits. But she knew what he'd done for her. And she knew, with absolute certainty, that she'd never forget it. Friday morning arrived cold and clear. Valentina stood outside the courthouse in the same borrowed dress she'd worn to the Crystal Lounge, her hands trembling as she clutched her purse. Her mother stood beside her, holding Sophia's hand. The 7-year-old looked small and scared in her best dress, her dark braids tied with pink ribbons. "It's going to be okay, mija," Rosa whispered. "You'll see." Richard Chen appeared at the courthouse steps, immaculate in a gray suit, carrying a briefcase that probably cost more than Valentina's monthly rent. "Miss Reyes, are you ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be." "Good. Remember what I told you? Let me do the talking. Answer questions directly and honestly. Don't let Marcus's lawyer provoke you. We have the evidence. We have the truth. We win." The courtroom was smaller than Valentina expected. Marcus sat at the defense table with his lawyer, a sharp-looking woman in her 50s who looked furious about something. Probably about representing a client whose credibility had imploded overnight. Marcus looked different, diminished. His expensive suit couldn't hide the exhaustion in his face, the barely concealed panic in his eyes. When he saw Valentina, something flickered across his expression, rage mixed with disbelief. He knew that someone had destroyed him, knew that Valentina had found powerful backing somewhere, but he didn't know who, and that uncertainty was eating him alive. Judge Patricia Morrison entered, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes that suggested she'd heard every lie the legal system had to offer. She reviewed the files in front of her with methodical attention. "This is a hearing regarding custody of minor child Sophia Harrington," she began. "I've reviewed both the original motions and the amended filings submitted this week. Mr. Chen, you're representing the mother?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And the new evidence submitted regarding Mr. Harrington's activities?" "The evidence speaks for itself, Your Honor. My client's ex-husband is currently facing federal fraud charges. More relevantly, we have documented proof that he threatened Miss Reyes, attempted to intimidate witnesses, and made false statements to this court regarding her fitness as a mother." Marcus's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client maintains his innocence regarding the fraud charges and—" "Your client's criminal case isn't my concern right now," Judge Morrison interrupted. "His fitness as a parent is, and threatening the mother of his child certainly speaks to that fitness." She looked at Marcus over her glasses. "Mr. Harrington, did you or did you not tell Miss Reyes that you would, and I quote, make sure she never sees their daughter again?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "That's taken out of context, Your Honor. I was merely expressing—" "It's a yes or no question." Silence. Then quietly, "Yes." "And did you recruit witnesses to testify to Miss Reyes's alleged instability, despite having no direct knowledge of such instability?" Marcus's lawyer touched his arm, whispering urgently. Marcus's face went red. I wanted to ensure my daughter's well-being." "By lying to the court?" Judge Morrison's voice was ice. "Mr. Harrington, I've been a family court judge for 23 years. I've seen countless custody battles turn ugly, but I have zero tolerance for parents who use the legal system as a weapon against each other, especially when children are caught in the crossfire." She closed the file folder with a sharp snap. "Primary physical custody is awarded to the mother, Valentina Reyes, effective immediately. Mr. Harrington, you will have supervised visitation every other Saturday, pending resolution of your criminal charges. If you are convicted, we'll revisit the arrangement. If you're acquitted, we can discuss expanded visitation at that time." Marcus shot to his feet. Your Honor, this is outrageous. You're taking my daughter from me because of unproven accusations. I'm awarding custody based on the evidence presented, including your own admission of making threats. Sit down, Mr. Harrington. Someone got to you. Marcus's composure shattered completely. Someone paid you off? Bribed. You. Because there's no way. Mr. Harrington, if you continue, I will hold you in contempt. Judge Morrison's voice was deadly calm. I suggest you listen to your lawyer and control yourself. Marcus's lawyer physically pulled him back into his chair, whispering frantically. Judge Morrison turned to Valentina. Miss Reyes, your daughter will be returned to your custody today. The court clerk will provide you with documentation. Do you have any questions? Valentina could barely speak. No, Your Honor. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just be the parent your daughter deserves. As they filed out of the courtroom, Valentina's legs felt like water. Her mother was crying. Sophia was asking what happened, her voice high with nervous hope. Richard touched Valentina's arm. Congratulations, Miss Reyes. Sophia's yours. I can't believe it. Valentina's voice broke. How did you do this? I presented the truth. The evidence was overwhelming. Richard's expression softened. But between you and me, whoever provided that evidence cares about you very much. Most people in his position don't go to these lengths without a reason. His position. Richard knew who Dante was, what he was. Thank you, Valentina whispered, for everything. You're very welcome. If you need anything else, you have my number. As Richard walked away, Valentina felt her mother's hand on her shoulder. Mija? What just happened? I won, Mama. We won. Sophia tugged on Valentina's dress. Does this mean I get to stay with you? Valentina crouched down, pulling her daughter into her arms. Yes, baby. You get to stay with me. Always. Sophia threw her arms around Valentina's neck, and Valentina held her daughter close, breathing in her scent, feeling the solid warmth of her small body. Safe. Finally, safe. Over Sophia's shoulder, Valentina saw Marcus emerge from the courthouse. His face was twisted with rage and humiliation. His eyes found Valentina across the courthouse steps, and the hatred there was pure and absolute. For just a moment, Valentina felt fear spike through her relief. Then a black SUV pulled up to the curb. The window rolled down, and Dante looked out at her. He didn't smile, didn't wave, just met her eyes with that steady, unreadable gaze, and suddenly the fear evaporated. Because Marcus could hate her all he wanted, could rage and threaten and plot. But Valentina wasn't alone anymore, wasn't defenseless. She had Dante Caruso's protection. And men like Marcus knew exactly what that meant. Dante's window rolled up. The SUV pulled away. And Valentina took her daughter's hand and walked toward their future. 3 weeks later, Valentina stood in her apartment's small kitchen, watching Sophia do homework at the dining table. Normal. Everything was blessedly normal. School, dinner, bedtime routines, no court dates, no threatening phone calls, no looking over her shoulder constantly. Marcus had been released on house arrest pending his trial. His supervised visitation with Sophia had happened twice. Awkward, tense meetings at a child welfare office where a social worker watched every interaction. Sophia had been quiet afterward, processing, but she'd seemed relieved when they left. The apartment phone rang. Valentina answered. Hello? Miss Reyes? This is the front desk. You have a delivery. I didn't order anything. Well, it's here. Should I send the courier up? Sure, thank you. 5 minutes later, Valentina opened her door to find a delivery man holding a large box and an envelope. Valentina Reyes? That's me. He handed over both items and left without waiting for a tip. Valentina carried the box inside. Sophia looked up from her homework. What is it? I don't know, baby. The envelope was thick, expensive. Inside was a letter on cream-colored stationery, the same paper as the business card. Miss Reyes, by now you've had time to adjust to your new normal. I hope you and Sophia are finding peace. The contents of this box are a gift. Not a payment. Not an obligation. Just something I thought you might need. Inside you'll find 1. A new phone with a secure number. My contact is already programmed in. Use it if you ever need help, or delete it if you prefer. Your choice. 2. An envelope containing information about a trust fund established in Sophia's name. It will cover her education expenses through college, no strings attached, no access required from you. 3. A recommendation letter for a teaching position at Riverside Academy, a private school with excellent benefits and 3 times your current salary. The headmaster owes me a favor. Whether you interview is entirely up to you. You asked me once what I wanted from you. The answer remains nothing. But I will tell you what I hope for, that you and your daughter live safely, happily, without fear. That Sophia grows up knowing her mother fought for her. That you never have to ask strangers for help again. If you want to thank me, live well. That's enough. You have my number if you need it. I hope you never do. But I'll always answer if you call. Dante Valentina's hands shook as she opened the box. Everything he'd described was inside, along with something else. A small velvet box tucked at the bottom. She opened it carefully. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a pendant shaped like a dancing couple, frozen in an eternal embrace. The craftsmanship was exquisite. The figures so detailed she could see the woman's dress flowing, the man's hand on her waist. A reminder of the night they met. Of the dance that changed everything. Valentina lifted the necklace, watching it catch the light. Her throat was tight with emotion she couldn't name. "Mama?" Sophia called from the table. "Who sent that?" "A friend," Valentina said softly. "Someone who helped us when we needed it most." That night, after Sophia was asleep, Valentina stood at her window and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Dante Caruso was probably in his study, working on whatever business required his particular skills, making deals in gray areas, helping people who had nowhere else to turn. Living a life Valentina would never fully understand. She should put the necklace away. Should delete his number. Should close this chapter and move forward without dangerous men in her orbit, no matter how helpful they'd been. Instead, she fastened the necklace around her throat, and she saved his number under a simple name, Guardian, because that's what he'd been. Not a criminal, not a monster, not a man who wanted something from her. Just someone who'd seen her drowning and pulled her to shore. Just someone who'd kept his promise. 6 months passed like a dream. Valentina accepted the position at Riverside Academy. The salary was transformative. Enough to move to a better apartment. Enough to breathe without constantly calculating expenses. Enough to give Sophia everything she deserved. Marcus's fraud trial ended in conviction. 20 years in federal prison. His supervised visitation rights were terminated. Sophia asked about him sometimes, and Valentina answered honestly but gently. Your father made bad choices. But that doesn't mean he didn't love you. She didn't tell Sophia about the threats, about the fear, about how close they'd come to losing each other. Some truths were too heavy for 7-year-old shoulders. On a Saturday afternoon in May, Valentina took Sophia to Riverside Park, the same park where everything had started to change. They spread a blanket near the soccer fields and had a picnic. Sophia laughed and ran and played, free and safe and beautifully, wonderfully normal. Valentina was packing up their things when she heard a familiar voice. "Miss Reyes." She turned. Dante stood a few feet away, dressed casually in jeans and a dark sweater. He looked different outside his usual context, More approachable, less intimidating. But his eyes were the same, intelligent, watchful, seeing everything. Dante. Valentina's heart kicked against her ribs. What are you doing here? I was in the neighborhood. Saw you from across the park. He gestured to Sophia, who was chasing a soccer ball. She looks happy. She is. We both are. Valentina stood, brushing grass from her jeans. Thanks to you. You did the hard part. I just provided resources. They stood in awkward silence for a moment. Then Valentina touched the necklace at her throat. She wore it every day now. A talisman. A reminder. Dante's eyes followed the movement. Something flickered across his face. I wanted to thank you properly, Valentina said. For everything. But I didn't know how. Sending a card seemed ridiculous. Calling seemed presumptuous. You don't owe me thanks. I owe you everything. Valentina's voice was fierce. My daughter. My peace of mind. My future. So yes, I do owe you thanks. And more than that, I owe you honesty. Dante's expression shifted. Curiosity, caution, something else. I've spent 6 months trying not to think about you, Valentina continued, the words tumbling out. Trying to convince myself that what happened was just a transaction. That you helped me out of guilt or obligation or some reason I could understand and file away. But I can't stop thinking about the way you looked at me on that dance floor. The way you've protected me without asking for anything in return. The way you saw me drowning and decided I mattered. She took a breath. I don't know what you are, Dante. I don't know if I should be terrified of you or grateful to you or both. But I know that when I think about the people who've changed my life, who've made me believe that good things can still happen, you're on that list. And I wanted you to know that. Dante was very still. Miss Reyes? Valentina. After everything, I think you can call me Valentina. Valentina. Her name in his voice sounded different. Careful. Precious. You should know that getting involved with someone like me is complicated, dangerous. I have enemies. I live in a world where violence is currency and trust is lethal. I know. Your life is finally stable, safe. You don't need my complications. Maybe not. Valentina took a step closer. But maybe I want them anyway. Maybe I'm tired of playing it safe. Maybe I'm ready to take a risk on something. Someone who actually gives a damn. Dante's jaw tightened. I'm not a good man, Valentina. I don't believe that. You should. Well, I don't. Valentina reached out and took his hand. His fingers were warm, strong, and for just a moment they tightened around hers. You saved me, Dante. You gave me back my daughter. You asked for nothing. That's not what bad men do. It's what guilty men do. His voice was raw. Men trying to balance scales that will never balance. Then let me help you balance them. Let me. Valentina stopped, searching for the right words. Let me know you. Really know you. Not the guardian angel or the dangerous man or whatever persona you show the world. Just you. For a long moment, Dante said nothing. His dark eyes searched hers, and Valentina saw the war happening behind them. Duty versus desire. Control versus vulnerability. The walls he'd built versus the woman trying to scale them. Then, slowly, he smiled. A real smile that transformed his face, made him look younger, less burdened. One condition, he said softly. Valentina's breath caught. Anything. You let me take you to dinner. Somewhere nice. Somewhere we can talk without your daughter or my business or the world watching. Just you and me. Is this a date? Yes. No hesitation. If you'll have me. Valentina felt warmth bloom in her chest, spreading through her like sunrise. I'll have you. Dante's fingers tightened around hers. Then he glanced past her to where Sophia was running back toward them, soccer ball in hand. Your daughter's coming. Should I? Stay, Valentina said quickly. Please. I want you to meet her properly. Sophia skidded to a stop, eyeing Dante with the suspicious curiosity of a 7-year-old. Who's this, Mama? This is Dante. He's a friend. A very good friend who helped us a lot. Sophia studied him solemnly. Then she held out the soccer ball. Do you know how to play? Dante crouched down to her level. I used to. Been a while, though. I can teach you. I'm really good now. Sophia's gap-toothed grin was pure sunshine. Come on. She grabbed Dante's hand and pulled him toward the open field. Dante looked back at Valentina, something vulnerable and almost boyish in his expression, like he was asking permission, asking if this was okay, asking if he was allowed to be part of this moment. Valentina smiled and nodded, and as she watched Dante chase a soccer ball with her daughter, watched him laugh when Sophia scored on him, watched him be gentle and playful and wonderfully, beautifully human, Valentina felt the last piece of her fear dissolve. This man had saved her life, had given her back everything she thought she'd lost, and now, maybe, she could save him too. Not from external threats or enemies or the dangerous world he navigated, but from the loneliness that came from always being the protector and never being protected. From believing he was defined by his worst choices instead of his best ones. From thinking that redemption was something you earned through sacrifice, rather than something you accepted through love. Valentina sat on the blanket and watched her future unfold in shades of hope and possibility. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, she wasn't afraid. Not tomorrow. Not of the unknown. Not taking a chance on a dangerous man with kind eyes and a broken compass that somehow always pointed toward doing the right thing. She was just happy. And that, Valentina thought as she touched the dancing couple pendant at her throat, was the most extraordinary gift of all. 2 years later, the wedding was small, just family and a handful of close friends gathered in the garden of Dante's estate. Valentina wore a simple cream dress that Sophia had helped pick out. Dante wore a dark suit and a smile that made him look almost boyish. Sophia served as flower girl, taking her duties very seriously. She scattered petals with solemn concentration, then stood beside her mother during the ceremony, holding Valentina's bouquet and beaming with pride. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," Dante cupped Valentina's face with both hands and kissed her with a tenderness that made several guests tear up, including Marco, who pretended he had something in his eye. At the reception, Dante and Valentina shared their first dance as husband and wife to the same song that had played that night at the Crystal Lounge. Valentina rested her head against his chest and felt his heartbeat. Steady, strong, alive. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For answering when I called. For keeping your promises. For being the man who saved me." Dante pulled back slightly to look at her. "You saved me too, you know. Gave me something worth protecting. Something worth being better for." "We saved each other then." "Yes." He smiled. "We did." As they swayed together under lights strung through garden trees surrounded by people they loved and who loved them back, Valentina thought about the scared woman who'd begged a stranger to dance with her 2 years ago. That woman had been drowning, had been desperate, had been willing to risk everything for one moment of safety. And the stranger had given her so much more than safety. He'd given her hope, partnership, a future where fear didn't dictate every choice. He'd given her love, not the easy kind, not the simple kind, but the kind that was forged in fire and tempered by understanding, the kind that saw your scars and loved you anyway, the kind that promised, "I'll fight for you, I'll protect you, and I'll never, ever let you drown alone." Sophia tapped Valentina's leg. "Mama, Can I dance too? Dante immediately scooped her up, settling her between them. Sophia giggled as they swayed together, the three of them moving as one unit. A family. Valentina looked at her daughter's joyful face, at her husband's gentle smile, at the life they'd built from the ashes of fear and desperation, and she thought, this, this is what happiness looks like. Not perfect, not easy, but real and hard-won and absolutely beautifully worth every risk she'd taken to get here. The song ended. Guests applauded. The celebration continued. But for just one more moment, Dante held Valentina close and whispered against her ear, "Dance with me." Not a command, not a transaction, just an invitation to keep choosing each other, keep fighting for each other, keep building this improbable, impossible, perfect life together. Always, Valentina whispered back. And as they moved together under the stars, surrounded by love and laughter and the kind of joy that comes from surviving the darkness and choosing to believe in light, Valentina knew with absolute certainty that she'd found exactly where she belonged. In the arms of the dangerous man who'd taught her that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for help. And sometimes the best thing you can do is answer when someone asks. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.